Yo, hey guys, welcome to the show. Just a time whenever we can come together and talk about scripture together. Frankie and I are super uncomfortable right now.
Yes.
Which you guys are probably going to notice anyway, so I felt like we might as well talk about it. But we just wanted to create this video. It'll be really short, not too long, but we just wanted to do something, create something that you guys have something, a little devotional to have every day that you can listen to, that you can talk about with your friends, you can talk about with your family. That you can even share with a lost person who's struggling, because Frank and I don't want to just sit back and act like everything in the world's all right. But we also want to continue to remind ourselves that God is way more than all right, and that we have a hope in Him, even though this world may seem crumbling around us.
Yeah, and part of our vision for these videos is to see you guys worship alongside of us, but worship alongside of your family, to be able to take these 10-20-minute videos and come together and read through scripture, to be able to worship God together as a collective in a time when we're forced to be together and to do something meaningful. And so as we deal with that with our families, we also want you guys to be able to do that with other students and other classmates and other people around you, whether it be a neighbor on a Sunday morning or a friend that has come over on a Wednesday night just to be with you and play Xbox. Man, take 20 minutes to actually go through a portion of scripture as we kind of walk through it. And so the portion of scripture that we want to walk through today is Psalm 46, verses 1 through 3. So I want to go ahead and read that. And then we're going to do the sword method, where we answer questions like, what does this passage say about God? What does this passage say about man? And what does this passage say about obedience? And so we want you guys to be able to answer that. So answer those in comments below, answer those with each other, and continue to speak about this, because Mitchell and I are not exhaustive. And then we're going to ask some hard questions, hopefully at the ends, that you guys can again continue on with that discussion. So Psalm 46, 1 through 3 says, God is our refuge and strength, a helper who is always found in times of trouble. Therefore, we will not be afraid, though the earth trembles and the mountains topple into the depths of the sea, though its waters roars and foams and the mountains quake with its turmoil. So Mitchell, what does this passage say about God?
Well, it talks about, easy, go back to verse 1. God is our refuge and our strength. Like He's our stronghold. He's consistent. And that's contrasted in these three verses, because it talks about the inconsistency of the earth and the mountains and the seas and everything around us. The passage doesn't specifically talk about people, but we could add people to that. But God is always consistent. God is always our refuge. Another word for refuge that we could use is stronghold, a place where we can go and we can hide out, some place where we can find safety. Like if you really have a refuge and a stronghold, there's nothing that can break that when you rest in that. There's nothing that can get to its strength. Obviously, God is strength. He created the entire universe. And we believe with this virus that God has the ability to completely wipe it out, to heal the whole world if He so desires. And but since He hasn't yet, we have faith also that He's trying to teach us something in this moment, which He's teaching Frankie and I, like making these videos so that we can connect with you guys. So what's it teach about God? Well, it says that He's consistent, even though everything else around us is inconsistent. It teaches that God is a place where we can go to hide out in Him. So on the flip side of that, if this scripture talks about God in this way, how does this scripture talk about man?
Yeah, well, this scripture talks about man in the sense that there are times of trouble, and there are times that are good, but there is a hope and there is a refuge and there is a strength that comes outside of man, right? These things that we plan for, these things that we deal with are outside of our control. When the psalmist specifically talks here about mountains quaking with turmoil, waters roaring and foaming, and mountains toppling and earth trembling, none of this is because of man. None of this is because of the things that we have done. This is all outside of our control, which is exactly where we're at, in a place that is outside of our control. And it points us in a direction to look back to the foundation, to look back to that which is strength, to He who is our refuge. The psalmist is crying out for God, who is our refuge, to save us, to be a lighthouse in a time of turmoil and storm. So Mitchell, in light of that, in light of looking forward to those things, what does this passage point us in the direction of obedience?
I mean, obeying who God is and what he does, and not doing what we want to do. Like, it's really easy for me personally to sit back and be like, well, I have no control over anything, and pout about like, well, this isn't how I envision this time in my life going. This isn't how I envision ministry going at this point in life. But God doesn't call us to focus on what is all around us. He calls us to focus on himself. He calls us to run to him, to seek strength, to seek refuge in him. And today has been an easy day for me to do that. Monday was not an easy day for me to do that. But it's just constantly obeying what God's commands are, and resting in that fact, and not trying to do everything on my own, not trying to do everything on your own, because we all like control. And I think in this season, it's really easy for us to understand, like, I really have no control over anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, we can brainstorm ideas of how to like impact our community and serve our community and serve those around us. But at the end of the day, we don't really know, but God knows, and we have faith in that. And that's all we can do is pray to God, and talk to our friends who are also dealing with the same thing. Like, we're all going through this together. Frankie and I don't have this figured out. You guys, I don't think, have it figured out. Maybe one of you is smart enough to have it figured out already, but just talking with other believers about this, witnessing to our friends who are unbelievers and saying, hey, everything's going to be okay. Maybe not by the world's standards, but by God's standards, and just having those conversations with those around us. So obedience by pushing ourselves first towards the stronghold of God, and then second, pushing those around us, both unbelievers and unbelievers alike, pushing them also towards God. And that's the obedience that we have here, that I would say. So what's some tough questions that we have based upon this passage of scripture?
Yeah, so our first one is, how does this passage encourage you specifically? How does this passage lead you to not be afraid? I mean, as verse 2 says, therefore we will not be afraid, though the earth around us is in turmoil. How are we not to be afraid? How does this verse encourage you? And Mitchell, what's the second question?
What does this passage say about the promises of God? Not saying about what the world is, but what can we say about, when looking at the character of God in this passage, what promises can we get from him? What promises have we seen of God providing, being strength in the Old Testament? What promises do we see in the New Testament of God providing, of God being a stronghold, a refuge, even pointing to Jesus in that moment? And also a third part of that one would be, how do we hold on to the promises that God has given us right here in this moment? That God's given you a promise today, multiple promises. I'll let you guys dig deep in scripture yourselves or Google it, but there's plenty of places in scripture that talks about how God gives us promises today. We don't have to look back and be like, well, God promised this way long ago. It doesn't necessarily apply today. Like, there's promises in scripture about how God provides for us every single day, even though this book is old, but it still applies. So Frankie, last question we've got.
Yeah, so the last question is how can I talk to friends about these verses? How can we notice people around us who are afraid, who are struggling, who are anxious about what is happening? How can we take these answers from those first two questions and then share them with those people? When we see people price gouging and mass buying toilet paper because they're afraid that they won't be able to use the bathroom for 2 weeks. How can we use this verse and scripture and promises that God gives us to encourage those who are anxious and fearful and afraid around us of what's going to happen? How can we encourage our parents as we are not afraid of the changes that are happening in school? What about the way in which we may not have enough food today because Walmart didn't get enough shipped to it, and we went 4 times and we weren't able to get it? Not speaking out of personal experience or anything, but how can we share these promises with people around us, whether it's our neighbors or our classmates or the people in our own homes? And that's the point of these videos, is to continue to go and share these things and to hide them in our hearts so that we then can go out and love God and love our neighbor and obey all that Christ has commanded us to do. And that's the issue that we want to address here. So how can you share these verses? That's the question.
How can you talk with your friends about it? Because we don't want to go through the same old like we talk to you guys and then you guys respond to us and that's it. We want you guys to go and have conversations with those around us. An easy way for you to do that is to like this video and comment on this video, tag a friend in it, share this video with a friend, share this video with a family member. Super easy. You don't even have to get out of bed. You don't have to put on real pants. You don't have to leave the house, mainly because it's what we're supposed to be doing anyways. But just share it. Just comment a friend in this video like, hey, like watch this. These guys look really awkward staring at a camera right now. But thanks for watching. We really appreciate it. We love you guys, which is why we're here doing this. We want to stay connected with you. We're here for you. If you guys need anything, let us know. But thanks for watching the video. Remember to like this video, to leave a comment below with someone, and all the questions that we talked about will also be listed in the comments below. But other than that, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.